So Tracy, all the way from Microsoft Ignite, community reporter this year, and I have to say, Mark, I've had a couple of those bucket list things happen to me this week. I've had an interview with Jeff Teeper. Yesterday I had an amazing chat with Jeff Medford as well. Cool interview with Naomi as well a couple of days ago. And this is me starting to get to the point where, man, I had a good selfie with Julia White yesterday. I mean, man, my bucket list is just, now I just have my bucket list left, which is the bikes I want to buy, right?
Oh, nice.
But
did you see the AvPoint bike they're giving away?
I haven't seen
That's
the
a nice
Ducati yet. I'm too scared to go there. I never miss it. So I just bought myself one.
Oh, excellent.
I did.
How's that?
When I didn't win it in Vegas, I just went, I'm over this. I'm not lucky enough to own a Ducati, so I'm going to just go buy myself one. And I did. I've got a 696.
Oh, fun.
So Mark, I'm it's such a fortune for you to sit here with me. I'm such a big fan. You know this. I know that I stalk you on all the social media. You know this. So thank you for the time. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
If you could just tell us kind of your role of being here as well, your role of where you're based and what you focus on.
Yeah, so I'm based out of the Microsoft headquarters, and I've been on the SharePoint team for a little...
That's Seattle, right?
Sorry, Microsoft main campus, Seattle, which is really Redmond, Washington.
Yes.
And I live in Sammamish, so I'm about 10 miles away from where the campus is. So I've been up there for about 16 years, and about 14 of them I've been working at Microsoft. And for the last 10 plus years, I've been working on the SharePoint team.
Okay.
And most of what it was when we moved to the cloud, I got the offer from a buddy that I'd worked with a while ago. He said, do you want to help us with SharePoint with what we're doing in the cloud? And so in the BPOS days I joined, now Office 365. And most currently I focus on everything we're doing in our inner loop, so our connection with Microsoft Teams and our integration there, and everything we're doing for people's intranets. So how people build out communication sites, hub sites, but really from a scenario perspective, how do they build out their portals?
And that's exactly why we're sitting here. I mean, I started up in SharePoint. A lot of us did, hey? A lot of us had that starting point in SharePoint, and of course, very big advocate for Teams these days as well. I keep on saying, and I don't know if it's politically correct, so I don't know, chop it out if you have to. Maybe I'm not an MVP next year. But I keep on...
That won't happen, one word.
I keep on saying, oh yeah, you don't know me, Mark. I keep on saying that I'm convinced that Microsoft Teams is the gateway drug that leads to the consumption of the greater drugs of Office 365 or Microsoft 365.
So, funny, we had a little joke on the SharePoint team. We thought we were that in the past, because SharePoint's history has been to add servers. In the server days, we just bought, companies, or we bought some technologies, and we tried to put it all in the one box. The value there was this unified experience for end users and admins. And really, Office 365 and other apps take that to the next level. But with Teams, it's really centered around the individual. How do you bring in all of what that group needs? And there's lots of different groups that you have that you work with for big projects, small projects, things that spin up, things that are ongoing, things that are public, things that are private, and it's all just a working environment. But to be able to bring in rich experiences that you might want to build out a dedicated page to welcome all people that are new to the team. Here are things that everybody should read, watch this video, here are key documents, key questions you might have and answers to them. And to do that in Teams alone would be multiple tabs, or it might be just a threaded discussion that, say you join the team 2 months later, you could get to that discussion, but it would be hard to find, and hard to put it in the right context. But put together a really nice page with a video, with some rich information, dynamic data. You do it in SharePoint, bring it in Teams, and it's a great experience.
Something that I've really, and I mean, we're having casual discussions. There's been amazing things at Ignite this week. I see so many people so energized to go back. Yesterday I had the CIO of one of the big companies that I work with in South Africa sitting in my session. I was like, aren't you sick and tired of me yet? You come to Ignite and you sit in my session.
You've been preparing for this session, so they're going to see the best stuff. It's hard to pull somebody aside and say, show me your demo.
He says, we got a lot of work to do. He says, I've seen amazing things. I can't wait for us to get started. I'm so glad. Because if I just think of the SharePoint side as well and what's happening in online, the thing, and I'm going to use a simple example because I don't think everyone understands the benefits we get with how things have changed. I don't think they see the bigger picture of how things work together. I still find companies, for example, sending out announcements with PDFs, and I'm like, how's this happening? Do you realize that you can build this magical PDF, which is a web page with web parts that comes from places and asks for feedback, and then surface it in Microsoft Teams, send it out on emails? I mean, how incredible is that?
If you think about aggregating multiple pieces of content into what then is this new deliverable, a news article or a page or a home page, it could be an entire home page of a site. Once you've crafted that, and let's say you're bringing in dynamic data, something like big sales wins in the East region. That might be a nice little view into Power BI. You may not be the data model expert, I am not, But on the page, I'd get a quick view of where the wins are happening and maybe who to contact. And then just next to that, there might be an all-hands meeting recording. There might be, a number of things, whatever's on the page. But it's context. The best part about it is if you bring that page or go to the page itself, but if you bring it into Teams or send it as a link or whatever, that page is always going to be up to date. That PDF that gets downloaded might not be. Yeah. You could certainly reference a PDF. You could have a whole document library if you wanted to.
It's live data.
But it's live, and as people hit it on their phone, whether they hit it on the web, if they're lucky enough to have a Surface Hub 2 that you can do this with and turn it all around.
Bucket list.
SharePoint looks gorgeous there, and if you put time into the content you want to share, and you know that it's going to live and have a life afterwards, the value that we heard of why we're doing a lot of what we're doing is how do you help us keep it more dynamic? The intranet. Because a lot of people, you get the shrugs like, oh, I don't want to go to my intranet, it's old content, it's hard to find stuff, navigating is hard. So we're trying to crack all those things. And in the context of people working together, we have this great new UI we call Microsoft Teams. You can have a chat, you can mention people, you can reference documents, you can look at whole libraries, you can look at whole pages, lists. Especially if you know SharePoint, you might know, oh, I can do that and bring it in. If you don't know SharePoint, and maybe you don't have any need for SharePoint, you don't have to include it, so you're really focused on what's important. But you add a tab and you bring in Jira. You add a tab, you bring in a document library. You add a tab, you bring in a whole dashboard of Power BI. And then when you don't need it anymore, you delete that tab. The content stays where it is, but it's out of the context of us working together, getting stuff done.
Absolutely. I think for me, and I've been involved on the SharePoint side for many years. We've had quite a path that we've all walked together, right? Yeah. And it's difficult if you're such a big fan of a product to understand why other people struggle. That's quite a struggle, is to not. I just don't get it why people don't get it. But that's the struggle is real. And I've said for many years is that the products are great, but the thing that we are doing wrong, I believe, is that we're trying to take people to places. This is where I work, and I'm trying to take someone there and there and there, and people don't have time to travel to places anymore. We don't have time to navigate anymore. So for me, how Microsoft 365 and Office 365, how everything is starting to come together and it comes to me is magical.
Where are you working? I think the great example of that is, say you're working on a new sales proposal, or for me, like when I'm working on a blog, and I'm in the context of Word. And I like Word. I like to be able to track changes, share the document, and have people work on it in real time with me and get help, and it's a life cycle, it changes over time. But the other thing I really like is if I need to get some content that I know is available or I know that should be available, I can do a search lookup and find what I'm looking for, whether that's just a paragraph that I remembered reading and I want to grab it, whether it's a slide from a slide deck and I want to use it as an image in my blog, or tables of information. I can do that, find it within Word, and bring it right into my document, and I've never left Word. Exactly. And you can do that with Outlook.
This is where
you can do that with Teams. Wherever your center of gravity is, we want you to be able to bring it in. And I think that was a big turning point for the SharePoint team. As the Teams UI evolved, we wanted to be a part of it. And in fact, we wanted to have people remain there if that's where they're comfortable. Once you bring in content, now we make it a lot easier to bring in content from Teams that maybe exists in SharePoint. But that shouldn't be a hurdle. And that it just, like you said, keeps them focused on what they're doing, keeps the context of the other things that they are working on in that same frame, which might be the discussion with their team, reference another piece of information, get on with their work.
And of course it's one of those, again, we are got to be careful of not getting into trouble for things, but if I think of Microsoft Teams, and for me everything's just become one, okay? We don't have, for me it's not separate things anymore, and that's why this is starting to work. For me, in a way, Microsoft Teams became the worker's UI to SharePoint, if that makes sense.
I think it does. I think a great example is at the time that Teams was starting to come about, they evolved from the Skype engineering team. And Skype never had any concept of content management. And in their mind, in terms of what they wanted to offer on day one, was pretty basic content services. Basically, upload a file, be able to share it and work on it together. And there's a lot of things you can do to use other technologies. But boy, SharePoint's been doing that for a long time.
Do we have a product that does it already, someone, before we start developing?
Yeah, let's look at our portfolio. So we campaign pretty heavily, please don't build your own repository. Of course they didn't.
Never thought of that,
right.
But yes.
But even our first instance inside of Teams was less than what you get in SharePoint. now big announcements for us are you get the same files experience. It is the same control technically, but so you can accomplish the same thing, which gives you the room to do your basic stuff. If you never need the power, it's there, but you're not like inundated with it. But when you need metadata, when you want to just format and show things in a really interesting way, column formatting, row formatting, if you do anything with Power Apps and Flow, it all is now available inside the Teams experience. It's the full rich document library, but it is also heavily secure because we've been doing that forever. Lots of great metadata management, all the Flow capabilities, just the ease of sharing, internal, external, it was all there. And so they just needed to take advantage of it. So that was an easy decision for them. But if you look across the stack, there are some things that they own. The chat, we didn't have that. They've got a great chat experience, just for quick chat, for fun chat, with the GIFs and all the stuff you can type in that's really visual. But also they're bringing in other content that maybe we don't have the awareness of, CRM type activities, Power BI, like I've been mentioning, third-party services, like things like Twitter, Facebook. You can bring in, like, what's the sentiment of what's going on at MS Ignite? I could go to Twitter and type in the hashtag and look it down, or I could program a tab in Teams to show me, here are all the hashtag SharePoint, or maybe for you and your buddy, hashtag not Liz, hashtag not Tracy. And we could see all what's flowing in there and find the tweet that we like and then have a little chat about it.
Absolutely. So of course we're not doing a live stream yet, and this video will be surfaced afterwards. Yeah. I know that you've got a session coming up right now, so I think you've got a session today, and do you have?
I'll be working one with Naomi Moneypenny, really the value of teamwork and what does that look like to then the scenarios and how to use it. So I'm going to be demoing some of the new stuff that we have in Microsoft Teams. Before that, I had a session with Sue Hanley talking about the intranet, really strategy and vision. Yes. So that was a pleasure for me just to work with Sue. Mm-hmm. And it was also nice to, surprisingly for me, there was no demos in that session. Yes. It was all just what to think about before you do anything, which is where she lives in planning and strategy.
Yes, that makes sense.
And on Friday, I've got one more focused around what is the SharePoint team doing in the context of Teams, more to answer the question, where do I put my file? OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams? So we've got that clarity in that session. The other one is back to the thing we talked about. Is it Teams versus Team site, or is it Teams and Team sites? And I don't want to tell you right now. You got to wait till Friday.
You're going to make me wait? But they don't have to wait.
Oh, we've already talked about it. The key word is integration. Absolutely. Everything is integrated.
So Mark, so to wrap up our chats, and I've really so enjoyed this. And for me, as I said, everything's starting to become one. I have this invisible line that goes through all the apps and services. I don't see these things as separate anymore. I see this as this whole ecosystem that I work in, and I've got these components that deliver certain things for me. Like we said, it's not a Teams versus SharePoint thing. I don't always understand that discussion. For me, it's an integrated thing that works together, right? Yeah. So I'm going to do something really crazy. So with Jeff Teeper, I asked him to sign my SharePoint tattoo. Yeah. And I got a crazy idea. I'm going to also ask you to sign my SharePoint tattoo, but with a purple pen, so we can just bring Teams right into this. So that's the Teams integration? We're bringing Teams right into this conversation.
Just so you know, my handwriting is a little bit like a Richter scale.
I'm not going to spell it.
No, I'm just kidding.
So I'm gonna ask Mark to give me a signature for because he's definitely one of my biggest heroes.
All right.
And I've left the space open there for signatures, so this is a cool idea.
All right, so I'm gonna do both my signature and my hieroglyphic.
Oh my word.
So here's my signature.
Oh, that's crazy. No wonder that's crazy.
And then my hieroglyphic is Mark, so that's a dot. Cash. Man.
I love that, Mark Kashman.
So if you ever go in the way back years of SharePoint, and you're in the cave with all the cavemen and women, that's what you would see from my family.
Mark Kashman.
Mark Kashman. I like that. And my friends who jokingly call me Dollar Man.
So funny.
But I also want to say thank you to you. I don't want this to sound bad. You gave me two words where you sort of were, but you're crazy. You're crazy in a beautiful way, because you sign up for the craziest things. 365 blogs.
Yeah,
and then you did it twice. So I write them like, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work. And you do very complex things. You're also crazy for taking this role on, but you look like you're still smiling. So.
The fact that I sit here on a couch next to you is one of those things where you go and you go, this is what makes life worth it. I mean, this is just, the community is amazing. Thank you so much, Mark, for what you and your team is doing for us. Thank you for being amazing. Stay amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
I will do my best. I'll follow your lead. As crazy and as amazing as you are, I'll try to be a little crazy because that's fun, but I'll try to keep being amazing too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You have an awesome day and good luck with your session.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.